meeting, we had the chat function going on, and I was not able to monitor the chat function while we were involved in our discussion with the Port of Seattle. But when I did happen to monitor the chat, I saw that there were maybe 1, 2, or 3 people who were making comments in the chat that were very disrespectful of the participants from the Port of Seattle. And we have really no place for that in this community council, because it serves no purpose whatsoever. It does not help us in terms of our relationships with government entities to have their representatives come and then be called mouthpieces or something worse. And it reflects badly on all of us. So there's really no purpose that being rude to each other serves here. And besides, what we want from our community council is a safe place, a place where you can feel free to express your opinion, whatever it is. And you could have an opinion that's different from another person's opinion, but each person has to treat the others respectfully. And if we find that people are being disrespectful and rude in these meetings, we will basically block the person's participation from the meeting. And I don't see anyone on this call right now or on this in this group right now who I notice as one of the offenders, but you know, there's no place for it, and we don't have the time for it. So with that said, I'd like to move on. Now, who is planning to give the technical overview for the WebEx? Okay.
I will unmute myself. And so right now I know a lot of people have attended these kinds of meetings and are pretty familiar with how it all works. But one of the key things for these meetings is to mute and unmute yourself. So you can be sure to find the mute button, which is to the right of your name. If you see the participants, you can find your name. You'll be at the top, and then to the right you'll see a little microphone. If it's red, it's muted. If it's green, it's unmuted, and you can unmute yourself. During the course of this meeting, I will probably at times be muting everyone so that we can cut down on the background noise. We are also hoping to have someone from WebEx, an engineer from WebEx, attend this meeting to troubleshoot the background noise issue. I hope they can do that. Okay, and then the other key thing is that you can use the chat for questions. And if we have time during our discussions, you can say, I have a question, and if there's time, we can have you ask it verbally. Otherwise, you can chat, put your questions in chat. You can copy and paste from a document on your computer into the chat if you want to be writing up a question separately and then putting it in. Okay.
Question from Nick.
Yes?
Mute. There, I should be unmuted. Just want to say to everybody, now I've been dealing with these kind of programs, Zoom, Skype, these programs for a very long time. You've got to make sure that your televisions are off, your radios are off. Anything electronic that is in your room needs to be off when you're doing this. Because if it isn't, it brings the noise right onto the screen. Diane, you were just talking and you hear all kinds of noise in the background. I don't know if that's from you or from one of the other here. Have to make sure your stuff is shut down so that we have really good, clear. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nick, for that. I don't have anything else on. We don't have a TV on. There's no radio on. The only thing I can think is happening is that my husband's computer is on and he's on in the meeting and he's in another room. That's the only thing I can think might be happening there.
What I meant by that, Diane, that means if any of us have our electronics on, whoever's talking, our electronics is going to interfere with your talking. That's typically what's
Oh,
going
I
on.
see. Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to create an interference that's, going across like this across everybody's chance to talk or whatever.
Right. And so I'm going through and I'm finding as we were doing that, I was muting people and it made it better. So I'm going to continue to keep people muted unless I know they're speaking.
And I will mute.
That's very, very helpful.
Yes, I'll mute back out.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, and I would like to thank everyone for joining us. We're up to 47 participants now, which is a good number. And I see a lot of community leaders, people who've devoted a lot of their time to this community who are in this meeting. And I want to thank you all. People like Yvonne Cooperberg, Amy Morrison. It's just great to see you all. So thank you for coming. The agenda, is there a way, Diane, to show the agenda?
Yes, I will share my screen and I will show the agenda, which is on our website. So I'll do that right now.
And I'd like to read through the agenda. After the formal welcome, we're reviewing and approving the agenda. Then we're going to review and approve the minutes of the August 17th meeting. And then Jim Deers is going to lead a brief discussion on board nominations. We're going to have Marvin Mackey talk about policy changes proposed by the Elections Committee. We're going to have a report and recommendations and a vote from the Airplane Overflight Committee. And I believe they were even thinking about changing their name to perhaps the Airplane Noise Committee. I'm not sure what they decided. And then Puget Sound Energy is going to have a presentation put on by Heather Pierce. And I saw Ms. Pierce in the meeting. Thank you for joining us again. She's the outreach manager for West King County Puget Sound Energy. And she will be discussing PSE programs for small businesses, also energy saving programs for residential customers. Now, there were several members of the community who wanted to speak about important and intricate policy issues with Puget Sound Energy, but now's not the time. We can plan for that sometime in the future by bringing someone from Puget Sound Energy who really is a policy maker, and that would be appropriate. And then if we have questions that are difficult questions, it makes sense to present those to the person several days before they come to the meeting to give them time to research the question and come up with a well thought out answer. Then after the presentation, there will be questions, comments, suggestions for PSE. Then we'll have community announcements, then topics for future meetings, and then discuss the next meeting and then adjourn. So that's the plan, that's the agenda. Is there anyone here who is opposed to the agenda as it's currently written? And I'm looking in chat too. Seeing no opposition, I will adopt the agenda as written and we can move on to the next item, which is the August 17th minutes. Now, Diane, if you could have a reference to that on the screen. And I want to thank Diane for all the work that she's been doing in preparing these meetings, preparing the minutes. She's been really handling most of the work. And we're you know, I'm very grateful to the work she's been doing.
Michael Lurie has a question, David.
Oh, okay. Michael?
Thanks. Yes, David. So I just want to clarify, I understand what you're saying about some of the questions being, you know, complicated and a bigger issue than there's time to deal with in this meeting. But correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that not all questions are off the table. Questions where we would ask Heather from PSE about maybe a particular idea for on Vashon, that those kind of things are on the table for discussion tonight.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, just
But
wanted to clarify.
broad policy
Thank you.
issues that would require more thought and more discussion, we should have more time devoted to that and also allow more time to the presenter to respond to questions. Okay. All right. And so we have the minutes here. And if you could scroll through these, Diane, please. As you can see, at our last meeting, we had 52 participants, which is really nice. And we do have transcripts of the meetings available as a permanent record.
Breaking in. Diane, if you're scrolling, you really need to slow the scroll down. Anybody to be able to read that.
There are a few pages of these questions that were asked. I'm not sure that we need to read every single question
Yeah.
that was asked of
I agree, Diane.
report.
I think that we had those questions last meeting, and just showing them is fine. So I don't think everyone needs to read every line of every question. So thank you for scrolling through.
Yes, also these minutes have been on the website for the last month. So hopefully, and they were sent to everyone who's on the mailing list. So hopefully people have had a chance to take a look at them. I will go more slowly when we get to these others.
Okay.
I think it might be to our advantage, considering the meeting. If we come to this point again, we give mention to it and then post a link or send a link out to people that they can go and actually look and read it. And then we don't have to spend the minutes here in this meeting spending our time scrolling through.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Just a
Nick, it is posted on the website. So anyone can go to vmicc.net and read the agenda from the last month's meeting, because it is posted there.
Okay.
But having seen these minutes now, is there anyone who has an opposition to adopting the minutes as written? And I'll look to the chat function to see if there's anyone objecting. And I'll give you about 2 or 3 seconds. No. Seeing, okay, Mr. Laurie has his hand raised. No, that was from before. Okay, well, seeing no objection to adopting these minutes, I will consider the minutes adopted, and we can move on to the next item on the agenda, item number 6, which is board nominations, and I'd like to hand the floor over to Jim Deers.
Come on, Jim.
I unmuted you, Jim. You can talk now.
Jim, try turning your video off. That might help.
Jim, there are 2 of you showing up. You have a phone or something. You gotta turn one of your things off. You're on here twice. I'll mute one of you. That should help.
Okay, Jim, it's really breaking. Yeah, Jim, it's really, Jim.
Can I butt in?
No, hold on. Jim, you're breaking. Jim, why don't you try phoning in? Okay. Why don't we have Jim call in, and we can move on to the next item. Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Back to unmute.
Okay, and can you unmute? I'll call up Jim on the phone and have him dial in.
Okay. Yeah, I had to mute everyone to make that noise stop. Okay, David, back to you.
Okay, well, the next item on the agenda, and we will be getting back to board nominations. And Jim, if you could call in, if you can hear me, if you can call in by phone, it would be a clearer reception. We're getting a garbled reception on the computer. Okay, I think he got the message. So the next item on the agenda is a policy change proposed by the election committee, and Melvin Mackey was going to speak to that.
I have unmuted Melvin.
Good.
Diane, are you putting up the file, or do you want me to?
You can, because it wasn't attached to your email.
It wasn't?
No.
Oh, well, okay, you have to let me share then.
Yes, I do need to let you share. So here, let's see how I can do that now. Let me find you.
And thank you everyone for your patience with our new format.
It's now passing presenter privileges to you, Melvin. You should be able to share your screen now.
Can people see this? Can you see this, Diane?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, what do I have to do here?
What you have to do is share your screen is you have to go up at the very top bar where it says WebEx meetings. See that where it says share?
Uh,
The WebEx meetings file, edit, share. Do you see that?
nope.
At the bottom
See,
of
there's
your,
something at the bottom.
okay, at the very bottom.
Diane,
Yes.
Sorry. I have
screen.
up on the, I have what you're asking him up on the top left corner of my screen.
On an Apple.
Oh, I'm not on an Apple. I'm PC.
Oh, okay.
Melvin, are you on
Okay.
an Apple computer?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
am I. So if you go,
Okay. Let me go to share screen. What do I do? Click on one of these.
Yeah, it says share. Perhaps, oh, good. There we go.
You did it, Melvin. Very good.
Okay.
Can you see that now?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. The VMICC policies and procedures for elections as currently on the website is as shown here. Preparation guidance, items 1 through 8. If you look at item 4, it says prepare ballots. It did say if 5 or more candidates are nominated. Okay, with the voting system that we're using, if we have 7 or less people who are nominated, they are automatically elected. So there's no need for a vote. So what we need to do is to save ourselves time and money and wasted effort is to change that to prepare ballots if 8 or more candidates are nominated. In that case, we're trying to elect 7, so that would be running an election to reduce that number 8 down to 7 people. Or if we had 10 people running, we'd be reducing it from 10 down to 7. But if there's 7 or less, we don't need an election. So we're recommending here that we change, that we don't prepare ballots unless we have 8 or more candidates.
Okay, and I will entertain a motion to make that change if anyone would like to make that motion.
The motion is down at the bottom of the screen.
So moved.
Motion, Melvin Mackey moves to amend item 4 of the VMICC policies and procedures for elections preparation guidance by deleting the word 5 and inserting the word 8. That's the
Okay,
motion.
is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there a need for discussion on this item? I think not. Let's take a vote. Can we do a poll now? Okay. So the vote will be all those in favor of making the proposed change would say yes, and all those opposed would say no. Okay?
Can we raise our hands as yes and not raise our hands as no? That's not enough. Okay, never
No,
mind.
there are too many people, the screen's turned off.
Yeah, we can't see everyone on the screen. Okay, and how do we get to the poll? Diane?
Yes. I had to, I tried doing the poll, but I had to switch back to me being the presenter in
Oh,
order for
okay.
me to do the poll. So I was doing that. I was taking that role back from Melvin. So now I can create the questions. And could you tell me what to type in for the question, please, David? Do you approve?
Do you approve of the proposed change to the procedures?
Okay, I can open the poll.
Oh, great. Good job, Diane.
Thank you. I'm getting a little faster at this. Doing a very good job of doing their poll. I think we can probably go ahead and close it now, and then I can let
Okay.
everybody see the results. I'm going to close the poll,
Great.
and WebEx gives us 15 seconds before they'll actually do that. They give people a chance to do that. And then I'll be able to share the results with everyone.
Great.
So let me know when you can see them.
Yep, they're posted.
Okay, very good.
76% in favor. That passes. Okay, thank you, Melvin, for bringing this to our attention. And the next item, if we could go back to board nominations with Jim Deers. And Jim was going to talk through his phone, I believe.
Okay. I think the technical problem's been solved. Sorry about that. Just want to, as for the nominating committee, just want to encourage everybody to think about running for the board. It's open to anybody who will be age 16 by November 3rd, who's a Vashon resident. In order to run, you need to fill out an application form that is on the community council website. Everybody who completes that form within and meets the requirements will be listed on the ballot. The good news is we currently have 6 candidates for the 7 positions. The bad news is we don't have people from some of the key sectors on the island. We don't have any really young people running. Now, some of you consider yourself really young people. We don't have anybody from the Latino community. We're lacking people who are from the farming sector, from the faith sector, from recreation. So we really want to encourage people from all sectors of the island to apply. Applications are due by midnight on October 20th, and voting is from October 22nd to November 3rd. So you still have about a month to consider running. If you aren't up for it, find somebody who is. We want to make sure this is a competitive election, and we really want to make sure that all parts of the island, all voices are connected to the board. So thank you.
Great. Nick, you had a question? I saw Nick Juris. Did you have a question?
His last name and got me. I was going to say that when we are talking on here, one of the things you want to do for good voice is to slow down, try to monotone as much as you can, and that will tend to help. And anybody can invite themselves and get in here. Just love that.
Okay. All right. The next item we have on the agenda is the Airplane Overflight Committee did meet. They will be presenting a report now and a recommendation for a vote on a site location for the temporary noise monitor. So I'd like to turn the mic over to David Goebel.
Okay, Diane, give me presenter privileges so I can present. Can you hear? Hello?
Yeah. Diane?
It appears you have them, David.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me share content.
Cool.
Can you see the slides?
Not yet.
No.
Okay, so I minimized the Cisco so that it would have only my background.
You don't need to minimize Cisco. All you need to do is share your screen. It'll take care of that.
Okay, so under share, there are 5 options: content, web browser, multimedia, remote computer, and my meeting window.
In this
Which of the 5
particular
options?
case, you want to share content.
Okay, so share and screen 1. Oh, no, Acrobat, there it is. Oh, I see. It actually knows what to, okay. Share. Okay, so now can you see the?
Yes.
It's coming.
And screen.
I see it. Have Aviation Noise Committee.
Yes. And that, to the very first point, instead of plain noise overflight committee, recognizing that there are some people who it's not technically overflights that cause them distress from noise from the airport, people who live in proximity on Maury, that we thought this would be a more inclusive name for the committee.
Good.
So we're wanting to go with that.
Okay.
This is when we met, and the people that were present. The meeting minutes have full details, and including kind of small little bios on the people that were present. Dean is very interesting because he's been a military and civilian pilot for over 20 years, and flying large planes, mainly out of BFI right now, not SeaTac, but that was a very good perspective to have. So this brief one will only generally cover the noise monitor because we have a short amount of time for this. Next gen is an endless well that you could go into, and we could spend hours on that. So I'm not going to. Only when things directly impact the selection of a site will I go into that. The one exception is I get asked 2 questions a lot, and it's best to present this visually. We'll say, well, how busy is SeaTac? How has it changed over the years? This is how it's changed over the years since 1968. You can see we're in a growth pattern in operations and passengers until 9/11, and then it crashed after that. We kind of bumped along the bottom until about 2012, which is when 2 things happened. Delta added us as a hub, and that was a major thing. They're now on lockstep with Alaska Airlines in terms of operations. And also we had secular growth in the economy in the Puget Sound area. Those 2 things together fed both the operation count and the passenger count. You'll notice what happened after 2001, as an aside here, is that we had fewer operations but more passengers. Those that were flying might remember planes got a lot more crowded after 9/11. So that's a good thing for carbon emissions, that you want planes packed as much as possible. Maybe not right now, COVID-19, but in general, you want planes packed as much as possible. That's the most efficient way to run them. And also larger planes. People also ask what's happened since COVID-19. This is a chart showing green is this year, red is last year, and blue is that year of 2012, which was the bottom of the recent trough. So what it means is we're almost to the point where we were kind of our low point after 9/11. So it's a really interesting perspective here. These are on weeks. That's just because this is the way the port publishes the data. Once a week they put out new data, and so I put it in this graph, and it gives you an idea kind of how operations are recovering, and you'll see there's a generally fall off in the fall, and that's where we're following that pattern right now.
What caused that big drop I see?
Which one?
The one on the green pattern, you said that's the recent one?
That's COVID-19. I mean, if you look at the dates there, that's week number 10. That's like the first week of March, and that's the huge fall off. And it's important to understand operations fell about 80%. Yes, Nick? You have a little circle on you, so I think you're.
It's really small and light on the side.
These slides will be posted, so you can look at them as well. Passenger counts dropped 95% at the lowest point. So planes were flying, many of them almost empty, and that's why you see the. Anyway, that's just an interesting tidbit that's very topical given our current COVID-19. All right. So for a noise monitor, generally you want to put it in, this is kind of common sense, is the location that has the closest approach to the most number of overflights, right? That you have overflights that are all clustered in a certain area, and then you want to put the lowest point in that area to collect the most noise. You want it free from extraneous, extra man-made noise, because one of the important things here is the contrast between the background level and the overflight noise, which is a big difference between Vashon and, say, Federal Way or right near the airport, where you're right by a freeway, say. So the same level of noise from an overflight would make much more an effect here on Vashon than it would there, because it's drowned out by all the traffic on the freeway. So it's important to have that, and we don't want to artificially create extra noise. For instance, being right next to the ferry dock would not be where you'd want to put it. And it's not just man-made noise, it's also sounds of nature, because the sound meters don't have a way to account for what's pleasant and unpleasant sound, right? They just, sound is sound is sound. It's acoustic energy. And so for me, listening to birds is very pleasant, whereas listening to planes isn't. But to a noise meter, they're all the same. And so I don't know if any of you have ponds. I have a pond, and when the frogs get going, they're very, very loud. And so you would not want to put a noise monitor next to a pond. That's an example. Yes, Nick?
What about the state lands that are right up there behind Mukai? If we get something inside those trees, it's going to be very quiet.
Yeah, well, I have coming up, so you'll see that. The port uses Verizon Wireless as a data uplink, so we needed to have coverage for Verizon Wireless. The monitor plus the wireless modem takes about 5 watts of power. Potential solar options there as well, or the most convenient is to have hardwired power, and this was a port requirement that it be on public property. So they only have to deal with the public agency, not individuals who can be odd sometimes. Shows the current flight paths. The airport, this is kind of Airport 101, but they operate either in 2 different flows, north flow or south flow, depending on how they take off and land. Generally, it's better when planes take off and land into the wind, because it reduces their ground speed for the same amount of lift. In the Seattle area, about 75% of our operations are in south flow, which means they're actually flying north over the island. These are arrivals. And in this map here, the arrivals are in red and the departures are in green. So you see they're flying north over Vashon. They make a U-turn at some point to then land south into the wind at the airport. So they're descending as they're heading south. And you have to understand, if you look at this picture of Vashon, there's that one thin red line. Well, that one thin red line feeds that whole mass of webs of all the red lines above it. So within that one little red line are 250 arrivals in a 100-yard wide track. That's next gen. That was what the change was. And then they lowered the altitude about 2,000 feet. Reasons they're too complicated to go into right now. So the lowest point is going to be as it's descending at the north tip of the island. And so that's also under 250 arrivals a day. So the ideal place to put it would be right under that, right before it goes offshore, basically. Unfortunately, and there's hardly any public land. There's a parking lot there. There's some right off Cunliffe, and then there's one little tiny sliver, which is basically a cliff. And then the other public land is Winghaven Park. As you can see, it's not perfectly under the line. When you get the trigonometry of the situation is that when you're really close, the altitude predominates. So when you're computing your slant distance, which is between you and the overflying aircraft, when you get close enough is generally close enough, because the altitude is what predominates in terms of your distance to the airplane. But they're all private. And many of these homeowners they're on my mailing list because they come to my meetings, because obviously they're very impacted. And I have a noise monitor that I use. And I took measurements at some of these people's houses that are right on this. There's that one property on the bluff right above Dolphin Point, which would, in terms of actual noise signal from the airplane, it's perfect. There's very few trees. They've cleared it, so it's a nice bluff, and that helps for a lot of reasons. The problem is that the ferry noise is really loud there. You can hear the engines run in reverse when it's actually holding it against the dock, and you can hear all the traffic offloading. And in a loud private property, that really high noise signal would make it not as attractive as you would think just looking at it naively. Really, the only thing near the north end that is public property and that is relatively close to that line of all the focused planes is Winghaven Park. Now, for those of you that have hiked in Winghaven Park, there's a trail that goes kind of along, starting Cotton Left, and it goes down to the water. That's lower Winghaven Park. There's this completely unknown section of Winghaven Park, which is to the north. And if you ever looked from the north, when you're down along the water there's a cliff, basically. Well, this is a bluff on top of that cliff, and it's completely inaccessible. The people that live next to that, who are also on my list, by the way, because they're heavily impacted by the noise, they've lived there, I think, 18 years. They've never seen a single soul visiting that section of the park because it's just, it's uninhabitable. But it's a nice flat section, and about 1.3 acres to basically choose from in terms of where to put the monitor. Interestingly, I was worried about how close it was to the highway and the ferry, and I went down there with my noise monitor when ferries were offloading, and I heard nothing. The reason is because there's a big hill between them and the highway. So the topology, it's like, you know, a 100-foot tall berm basically, and it just completely drowns. You don't hear the noise from the ferry or the highway offload at all. The people that live there told me that sometimes when they go over the rumble strips, they can hear that. That's just occasionally when someone drives over the rumble strips. So it's I have the pluses there are the positive things about the site. The negatives are it's 100 feet west. It would be ideal if it was under, but again, the trigonometry, when you're 5,000 feet below a target and then 1,000 feet west of it, it's not that much of a difference from being directly underneath it. And the most important, when you're that close, the altitude predominates in terms of your actual slant distance to the target. But still, usually the port has a website they run called Public View, which shows all the planes in action as they fly over noise monitors. And from an aesthetic point of view, it would have been nice if the planes were flying directly over the noise monitor. That's purely an aesthetic thing, but it would have been nice to see that. But this is all the options that we have, especially on public property. This really seemed to be the. There is deciduous tree cover on the site, which actually doesn't the noise from the airplane that much. Interestingly, vegetation takes a lot of vegetation to drown out sound. That's why you have to build a very deep hedge to go and make a significant difference. The one thing it does do, and I experienced this when I've been down at the site doing test measurements, is there's a lot of birds. Birds like trees, and in windstorms, trees make a lot of noise. But you know, the fact is, this is what most people live with on Vashon. I mean, these are pleasant sounds, right? But to the noise monitor, they're all the same. Now, that being said, it was only in the 30s, mid 30 decibels, which is still really low. Yes, Nick.
What about the right up there on the west side of the highway? That's right at the old Island Arms and Curious corner. That whole gigantic field that's right there. What about that location?
Along the highway?
Yeah.
You know, anything along the highway going to have high highway noise.
Oh,
well,
let me interject, Nick. Nick,
yeah.
if you don't mind, this is just a presentation for a vote. It's not scheduled as a discussion. So if we could hold our questions on this, if you want to participate in the committee, that's fine. But I'd appreciate it if we could hold questions, okay?
Yeah, I will just have one thing that might make it really obvious here is that as these planes are heading north, they're descending. So for instance, they're well over 1,000 feet higher in town. So when you're basically, if you do try to put it further south, you're going to be a lot further away and you'll have less of a noise signal. So you really do want to be as far north as possible. I'll just add that to it. And then after I'm done, if there's time, we can take more questions on that. Does that make sense? Okay. And you know, this is actually my last slide. So we voted on this site and it was unanimous. I will say I've been scouting sites for the last 4 or 5 years on the island, you know, with actual noise monitors and actually trying to find it. And I think to take advantage of capturing the impact of next gen on Vashon with the limitation of public property, this looks to be the best choice. So that's my presentation. Is there time for questions? I'm not looking at the clock, so I don't know.
And you took a vote in your committee.
Yes.
And what was the result of the vote?
Unanimous.
Okay.
5-0.
So at this point, your proposal to cite now, were you able to address the issues of getting electricity to the monitor?
Yeah, there are three options that we looked at. The Vashon Park District, Elaine Ott, contacted Puget Sound Energy, and it's doable. It costs money to do it. There's a solar option available from the manufacturer of the noise monitors, and there's another contractor, a system integrator called L3 Harris, that would actually do it, and they'd be responsible for the engineering on it. And then the other option is there's a local vendor called Artisan Electric, who's a very prominent solar company in the Seattle area that's happened to be located on it. Well, they actually moved from Vashon recently because they got too big. They could create a turnkey solution that would look as if you just had an outlet sitting in the woods. So there's three different options. All of them would work, different costs. The cheapest and probably the best one is to have the vendor themselves go and actually use the solar options that the manufacturer provides. So these are three separate options we can present to the port.
Okay.
That all of them would work.
Well, then what I would like to do is present this as a vote for the community council. And Diane, if you could set up a poll, it would be, does the community council adopt the proposal of the Aviation Noise Committee? The site location proposal.
Okay, does the community council, well, how did you word that?
Adopt the proposed site location
Yes.
of the Aviation Noise Committee.
David, can I just suggest you add the so that if anyone, wasn't completely clued in, that you say the site of Winghaven Park.
Oh, sure. Okay.
You could call it Upper Winghaven Park just to make sure people understand that it's not the lower beach part.
Upper Winghaven Park. Sure.
So here's how it reads. Does the community council adopt the proposal site location of the Aviation Noise Committee, the site of Upper Winghaven Park?
I have a question.
Okay.
Are we
Sure.
doing this as a one-step process or a two-step process?
It's a one-step process.
Don't our bylaws
They proposed the site.
require us to
Excuse me?
propose a motion on one meeting and vote on it on the next meeting?
Well, we had proposed, Melvin, we had proposed that it would be for a vote at this meeting.
I know, but that's not.
I understand, and it's somewhat irregular, but what we had done is essentially made a motion to vote on it at this meeting. It wasn't in a formal motion form.
We need to make it an emergency motion then, I think.
Well, not really, because it was a motion, an informal motion was made at last month's meeting. There's no emergency to this. The committee took it under advisement. No, an actual motion was not made. That was an oversight. It should have been made, but it was done. It was stated at essentially like a motion, but it had not been made. If you would prefer to do an emergency motion, we could do it as an emergency motion, Melvin.
Well,
I believe that
I don't think it really matters too much, but I'm just saying we're not following our own rules. So
No, you're right, Melvin, you're right. We had an oversight at the last meeting. I forgot to call for a formal motion. It was phrased, though, in the same way a motion would be made, and it was set back for a month for consideration, just as a normal motion would be done. So I don't think it's necessary to do an emergency motion, but I appreciate your correction, Melvin. So at this point, I think we can do it as one motion. And if we could take a vote, as we had stated it, Diane, if you could set that up for the poll. Okay?
Okay.
I'd like to say something if I can.
Who's that?
This is Oliver.
Okay.
I think Melvin makes a good point, and rules are important for a reason, and this is a fairly significant change. While I appreciate all the work that David has done, being given more than a 10-minute period to evaluate the information provided is pertinent and significant. If there's a financial implication, I think we better understand what that is before we turn it over to a board to make those decisions on our behalf.
Oliver, if I may respond to that.
And if we don't understand all of those things, I think that we've given a fair opportunity to discuss them. And the very last thing is that you've acknowledged it was not a specific motion last month, and we have a very specific motion this month, and your own rules provide for a month's review after that.
Oliver, were you at the last month's meeting? Because very specifically, it was stated what we would be voting on this month, and that would be the Airplane Overflight Committee was given a full month to consider the issue. It's not a 10-minute discussion. Anyone who wanted to could have participated in the Airplane Overflights meetings, okay? During the month that preceded this meeting, we stated that it would be put on this month's meeting for a vote. So essentially, it was a very specific motion. It just was not framed as a motion. So I accept the, go ahead.
Was it specific specification?
Yes. They had talked about the Winghaven location, that they were considering that. And this is something that had been considered for 4 years, Oliver.
I understand. I appreciate all that, right? We're talking about process.
Okay.
And
okay, well, if you want to do it as an emergency motion, we could do it as an emergency motion. But I don't, go ahead,
one
David.
thing quick. Winghaven has an E. There's an E in Winghaven, wing. So it's actually Winghaven kind of, but if you, so anyway.
Okay, and the difference between an emergency motion and a normal motion is we need 66% to carry this vote as an emergency motion. I don't think that it really requires it, given all that we've done to consider this issue, but I can understand that some, need for process is in order. I think that what you have is everything that went into this motion was presented before. People have had sufficient time to consider it, but if you would like to do it as an emergency motion, Oliver, we could do it that way.
In fact, I'm trying to defend the standpoint of somebody who knows a lot more of this than I do. It's Melvin, and he's made it pretty clear that this is outside of the norm. I saw a question asking if this is an emergency. And
I understand, but Melvin also understands. Sorry, go ahead.
Every time I start talking, you just interrupt me. So it's important that we all be given an opportunity to review the information that's presented and come to those decisions on our own. You have a constituent who said that this is an issue because you're not following the process that's been laid out. And we've all agreed to follow and abide these rules. So let's not jump ahead and follow the process. If we need to make an emergency motion because you as the president think that that's important, by all means do so. All I'm saying is it sounds like the process is to wait a month and that we should follow that process.
Oliver, the reason we did wait a month, this was presented at last month's meeting, not at this month's meeting for the first time. And the reason it was presented at last month's meeting was so that we could wait a month, just as we do for every other motion. So we've done everything we normally would do for a normal motion, and Melvin understands that, except to call it a motion when we proposed that we do this at the previous month's meeting. So in terms of substance, everything is there. In terms of process, we didn't call it a motion, and that's the only thing different.
I have two comments.
I do too.
Can I speak?
Sure.
This is Melvin. It seems to me that if we want to do an emergency motion, then we need to hear the speaker who gave the report tell why this is important to have this done this month instead of next month, which makes it an emergency. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is we have to vote twice, once to make it an emergency motion and once to pass it.
Okay. that's true.
Should
And to that, I think it works.
Okay.
All right, so just a short history of the noise monitor. It started off as a petition at the Strawberry Festival in 2018. We gathered 700 some odd petitions from people to augment the port's existing system of 24 monitors. We originally asked for 2 monitors on Vashon Island. We were eventually only given 1. It took a year and a half, pretty much of prodding the port. They finally passed a motion in October of last year to put a noise monitor on Vashon Island. The port themselves are used to dealing with cities. We don't have a city. That caused a lot of delay on their part, and then COVID-13 happened. And when they heard that Vashon-Maury Island Community Council was reforming, that to them looks like a city. It's their comfort zone. And this was when the planning was going on and the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council was emerging. This was like the first thing on the docket because all the planning started before Vashon-Maury, before David resurrected the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council. So this was already in the works for that. The motion passed the Port of Seattle last October for our noise monitor. So it's already been delayed here 11 months. And this was going to be, it was designated for the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council's kind of first action to take effectively. And there is no financial impact on the council or the Vashon Park District, or it really is the Port of Seattle. They were just looking for something that looks like a city to them, and this organization to them is a sort of thing that they like working with more than a nonprofit or a park district. They don't work with park districts. So anyway, that's the history of it, and so that is kind of an extenuating circumstance that in a way it was already primed when Vashon-Maury Island Community Council was being reformed, was that this was something that was kind of queued up and ready to go. That's kind of the history of it.
If I could add, Melvin, if I could add, the port is waiting for us to get back to them. We told them that we couldn't do it last month because we had to wait a month to have a vote on it at our following month's meeting after considering it for a month in front of the committee, which is the normal procedure for a motion. Now, I made a mistake by not calling for a motion, but everything else was there to make it a motion, and it would have been made a motion if I had called for it. The timing issue requires it to be presented now because the port is asking for it now, and they need to move on this. So I would call for a vote, or I would ask for someone to make a motion as an emergency, to do this as an emergency motion. David, if you want to, as the maker of the motion, ask that it be passed as an emergency motion.
Yes, pass this as an emergency.
David, it's two motions. It's one to make it an emergency.
Okay, I understand. The first motion, Melvin, is to make it an emergency motion. Can we make the first question is, will we take an emergency motion on this issue? Okay. All those in favor? Well, we don't have the poll yet. I would just say emergency motion, yes, no.
So David, the other way we could do this is, does anyone have an objection to passing it as an emergency motion, and do it that way? Because otherwise I got to start the poll all over again.
Okay, how about if we...
I just want to say, I think words matter. Really.
They do.
They really do. So let's really be certain of what we're about to say and do. That's what I want to say.
All right. Is there anyone in the chat function who is opposed to taking this matter as an emergency motion? If there is, please post in the chat function that you are opposed to taking this as an emergency motion. Seeing no opposition, that passed unanimously, Melvin, the first part of the motion. The second part of the motion is, does the community council adopt the proposal? And the vote on that is 57 to 43.
No,
No?
there was a no answer, it was 43. There were 0 no's.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 31 to 0. So it's unanimously passed.
Hold on, I suggest you redo this vote because it got aborted halfway through when
Yes.
this
Okay.
started.
I never
So
saw it
that's
either.
the reason there's no answers there.
I did not see it
redo the
either.
poll. Let's redo the poll. Okay.
Please.
Okay.
I'm now seeing it.
Okay.
It's starting over again.
Yeah,
That's the only way I can do it.
Winghaven's
Okay.
still misspelled, by the way.
Okay.
It's
Do you want
working
me to
here.
stop it
Diane.
and redo that?
No.
No,
We can just
it'll
change
be,
it.
it'll be
Thank
more
you.
secret. Okay.
So it's a family, the Wing family, WINGE.
I'd like to reiterate that if you're not talking, mute your mics. Please.
By the way, in the last few years, the first half dozen times I spelled it, I forgot the E as well, but now I've really learned how to spell Winghaven Park correctly.
I'm going to close the poll now because it would appear that most people have, I'm not seeing any more people in progress. So I'm going to
Okay.
close it.
And please let
And
us know the result.
I want to thank.
Yes, I will.
I want to thank Ms.
WebEx
Pierce.
leaves people time to do this.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Ms. Pierce from PSC for her patience. We like to put on presenters from off island first so they can catch the ferry. But
I'd like to make one more comment. Thank you very much for taking the extra step, because now it's people who were not able to be at this meeting will see in the minutes that we made this an emergency meeting or emergency question. And the fact that they were not here means that they missed out on the vote. Otherwise, they will think they were cheated out if we didn't have the emergency vote. So thank you very much.
sure.
So David, can you see the results?
Well, it looks as if the result is 37 to 0 with 15 abstentions. Okay, the motion passes. And so thank you very much, David, for taking the time to organize the committee and putting on the presentation. Many thanks. It's been many hours of work and we appreciate it. Okay, so we now have something we can officially report back to the port on. That's great. Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the Puget Sound Energy presentation. And I'd like to introduce Heather Pierce, who's the outreach manager for West King County for Puget Sound Energy. She's going to discuss some programs for small businesses and some energy saving programs for residentials. Now, there are members of this community who would like to talk about serious policy issues about Puget Sound Energy on Vashon Island. And to do that, Heather, do you have an idea of what, who at Puget Sound Energy we should be inviting to address these issues?
Thank you, David, and thank you everyone for having me tonight. It's a pleasure to be at this meeting and always enjoy a lively debate. So thank you for that. I will, as far as the policy questions are concerned, I'm happy to take those questions and put together answers that I can devise. As far as the policy team, there's a local government affairs team that you can reach out to. They're not a part of my team, so I can't obligate another team for a meeting, but I can certainly field as many questions as I can, using the email service that we've had earlier today, that Adam provided some questions. I'm going to do everything I can to answer those questions. And David, I did do my due diligence on the question that you posed this morning as well. So I'm happy to at least give some overview of those questions. So hopefully the answers that I'm able to come up with through research and conversation with my peers and my colleagues will present the responses that you are looking for.
Great.
And any follow-up, I'm happy to also follow up with any questions as well. So anything that anybody wants to ask, please consider me a resource, as I am your outreach manager for Puget Sound Energy.
And if I could ask people to hold their questions till after the presentation, that would expedite things. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. And Diane, do I need any kind of permission, or is it good to go for me to go ahead and share my content? Okay. All right. Great.
Got it. You're a presenter.
Okay. And I apologize. That air quality issue that we've been dealing with has really gotten to me, so I might cough, and I apologize. I'm trying to hold that in as much as possible. So here we go. Let's see, make sure that this is. Yeah, I want the screen. All right. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
No.
No?
I can see it.
Okay, great.
I can
All
see
right,
it.
so thank you so much. All right, so I am going to start with some program offerings, but to begin with, I do want to address how Puget Sound Energy is, working with the community and taking into consideration this unprecedented time that we are dealing with COVID and so many other things. But specifically, we are working with our customers to make sure that as safety is our number one issue and concern, we want to make sure that people's lights and gas stay on, because it is imperative to their health. And right now, more than anything, we need our health, as my voice is cracking due to the air quality issues we've been having. Sorry. But I am thankful for the rain. Is everybody thankful for the rain to clean that air away? It certainly made a difference in the last couple of days. So we, as a part of what we're doing, we're making sure that no one is being disconnected for payment issues, and we're not collecting any fees that compound the issue later down the road. And we are making payment plans not only with our residential customers, but also with our business customers. We want to make sure everybody's, electricity, that their power is staying on, and that is not a concern that they have to be dealing with during this very troubling time. So what we've created, in addition to resources that we've already had in place, is the Crisis Affected Customer Assistance Program, or what we call KCAP. And there is $11 million that has been dedicated to this fund. So far, we have given out $7 million in utility assistance through the KCAP program. And about 3.6 million of that has gone to King County, and 9,000 applicants have been approved already. So this is a program that is in addition to what we already offer for utility assistance, and it's actually above the actual area median income that's required for something like LIHEAP, which is the public assistance. So that is much lower threshold. This is at 200 or 250% area median income. So it reaches that lower middle rather than just the very the most income concerned customers. So we deal with this particular assistance fund, I think, helps a broader range of our customers. So it's something that I just wanted to point out. In addition to the work that we're doing with the KCAP program, our PSE Foundation, which is an independent foundation from Puget Sound Energy, we have $1 million that we have put forward in relief, and just wanted to let you know that part of that goes to the Seattle Foundation, regional food banks, and we also have an employee match fund that is up to $50,000 for any employee match. So it's really a really great opportunity to be a part of that particular assistance and through our foundation. And in addition to that, we are donating funds to get public health messaging out in Seattle and King County. So not sure if you've seen any of this messaging, but we did contribute to this as well, as safety and health are really imperative and an important part of what PSE stands for. I did want to make a quick note about our powerful partnerships. If you see it here, you'll notice on the far right-hand side in the middle is the Vashon Land Trust, and I'm pleased to report that they were a powerful partner this year, and I was very fortunate just a month after I started. So I just started at Puget Sound Energy at the end of April, and in June I was able to go out to the Matsuda farm to see the solar array that was installed and partially funded through the powerful partnership funding that we offer, that is unrestricted funds for an environmental purpose. And Artisan Electric is actually the installer as well. So that's something I wanted to talk about as well. And we are moving forward with 2021 as well. In addition to Vashon Land Trust being a powerful partner this year, they are also signed on so that they get donations for every green power and solar choice that a customer signs up for in this month of September. So it's something that launched at the beginning of the month. And if you see it and you have an interest in participating in our green renewable programs through green power or solar choice, a portion of that will go towards the Vashon-Maury Land Trust. All right, so I'm going to go forward with some of our programs that we offer for energy efficiency, and I'll start with the residential rebates. They include appliance and heating systems. As you can see, insulation weatherization, smart thermostats, O-Power, and the O-Power is the opportunity for neighbors, residents, customers to be able to see how their energy use compares to other customers, other neighbors in the vicinity. If you have any more questions about some of the rebates and offers for the residential programs, you can always go to psc.com/rebates. but we also provide, recommended energy professional and trade ally, opportunities. I think another key one is the lighting and windows. We also offer that for the multifamily, and I'll go into that in just a moment. And then right now, we're doing a campaign, a PSE match. So I'm not sure if you are aware of it, but PSE does offer free. Well, actually, it's better than free. We pay our customers to supply appliances that they're no longer using, that are working in working order. But if you no longer need an appliance, like a refrigerator or a freezer, that is from 1992 or before, we will pick that up for you, and we will pay you $25 per appliance, up to 3 appliances. But if you choose to donate your $25 per appliance to the Food Lifeline, we will match that right now. So it'll be $50 per appliance that would go to the Food Lifeline. So that goes until September 30th this year. All right, so I'm going to move into the multifamily rebates and incentives. And right now we always offer energy assessments, free energy assessments that can be done in the units, in the common areas, to get a better idea of how best to create an energy efficient unit and space. And it's really best if you own or manage a multifamily property as a condominium or an apartment. We really welcome you to give us a call, and we can look into the different opportunities that are available right now. The incentives apply in any of our service areas, whether it's combined electric or natural gas. And if the complex is 5 units or more and they're attached, we can offer these multifamily incentives, which as you can see, there's several options here, whether it's refrigeration or a heat pump. In Energy Star products, we offer these great rebates per unit. And, I wanted to at least provide these details for you because I do believe Diane has posted this PowerPoint for you, so you have this as a reference. And I also just want to mention too that there's air sealing as well, which I think is really important when we're considering, potentially more issues with air quality issues in the late summer. Another great incentive that we have right now that's going through December 31st for multifamily projects would be the windows incentives. And so they have doubled and tripled in some cases, and overall increased by 50%. And this is also in reflecting the COVID reality that we're living in and the economic downturn that we're all experiencing. And we wanted to make sure that our incentives reflect that. I also want to note that T-LED lamps that are normally $2 per lamp have been increased to $4. So another option and something to think about if you're considering energy efficiency upgrades for lighting. We also offer thermostats and bathroom ventilation fans at a rebate rate as well. And so these are some other options for the electric service areas for multifamily. And then I just wanted to mention the business lighting. This is another piece that I think is really important as businesses are struggling and either to reopen or to just keep the lights on if they're trying to stay open. We've increased 50%, up to 70% of costs for all lighting. I think a really great new program that we're working on for small businesses and small, where there's shopping centers with small businesses, is that our exterior lighting and parking lot lighting rebates are basically covered at 100%. Historically, there's been a co-payment that the customer pays that has been waived through the end of this year. So if you know of certain areas where parking lights are broken or exterior lighting needs to be improved, please consider these incentives, and we'll be happy to come out and make those upgrades and fixes before it gets too dark outside. All right, and then the final piece I really wanted to discuss as far as options is our Up and Go electric workplace charging pilot. This is a great opportunity for businesses that run 24 hours a day to put forward a request to apply and have an electric charging station installed into your business, into your parking lot. So some of the pieces of that would just be, as far as requirements or eligibility, is that you're a property manager or owner, building facility manager, and then there are several other pieces that a energy advisor would go through and look to make sure that this is a project that can work with the charging pilot. But something to keep in mind, again, if you have any ideas of workplaces that could use this charging station, is a great way for us to really start meeting our carbon emission targets. Okay, and that concludes my presentation today. And oops, that's my dog. And happy to take questions regarding this presentation, and any questions you might have that I can take back to my team or other teams and make sure I get those answers for you.
Kevin Jones.
Thank you, David. Just want to check my audio. Can you hear me okay?
Sure, I can.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you first. Topic and how many questions had been received regarding Puget Sound Energy and how those will be handled in the future. And Heather, thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you as outreach manager for Vashon coming and talking to the council. I'm Kevin Jones. I'm a member of the Vashon Climate Action Group. And Heather, I'd worked closely with Julian in the past. I don't know if you're his replacement or if he's still involved with us.
No, Julian still works in the government affairs. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Hey, I just wanted to mention that we understand that how these several questions, which I know are important to people on Vashon, has kind of been evolving. How to handle them has evolved as the council has gone through these last few days. I totally appreciate the fact that there's a number of issues that you may have to call on other resources in the company, right, to be able to really address. And it's really understandable that we've evolved that approach because the issues are really complex and the concerns run really deep. And I do just want to make sure with your introduction to Vashon that you recognize that about 3 years ago, we had 800 residents and over 100 Vashon business owners sign a petition for Puget Sound Energy to close the coal plants operating in Montana. 2 are now closed as a condition of a lawsuit, but there's still 2 others that are operating. And we now, of course, there's concerns that the company is planning to sell one of those coal plants, which would enable it to operate for another 20 years. So these are the types of issues that are, given the 800 people and 100 businesses who signed the petition, just recognize it's a very pertinent and issue that we're quite aware of on the island. And we very much look forward to an opportunity to have a dialogue with you about how our power company can move forward and help support the objectives and goals that your customers here on Vashon would like to see.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely noting all of this, and I appreciate the question and the concern and the context around this.
And Heather, if you're able to have an answer for the community council to any of these answers between now and the next meeting, what you could do is email it to me or email it to Diane Emerson, and we can post the answer on the website so that it's accessible to everyone.
Sure thing, absolutely.
Okay,
and just
great.
a heads up for people who before the meeting, those questions were typed out by me and sent to Heather. so she has those questions. So there were a bunch of questions on the liquefied natural gas facility in Tacoma, on coal strip, a bunch of those questions. So Heather and us are going to work together to figure out getting answers for those questions. So
Absolutely.
it's not, they're not just going into a black hole somewhere. We're going to get answers for people.
They're definitely not. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for making that clear.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for doing that. I saw Michael Lurie had a question, or yes.
Hi. So this is a question for you, Adam. I got my questions to you a little bit later in the afternoon, and so I just wanted to see if you did get those through over to him.
All the questions that I got were I typed up into some more succinct questions that I sent over to Heather. So yeah, everything I got I sent over to her. There were some questions that were slightly more nuanced about certain aspects of like the Tacoma liquefied natural gas facility that I kind of boiled down into broader questions. But yes, she got all those questions before the meeting. So
okay, thank you again, Adam.
And
Suzanne Greenberg.
Hi. So I'm just wondering, a bunch of us typed a lot of questions into the chat. Will you also be taking the chat there? Because I prefer if my question doesn't get boiled down.
Let me see that. Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Now, Diane, can we reproduce the chat? Can the chat be transcribed?
The chat can be saved. And so all those detailed questions that you put in the chat, those will be saved and those will be submitted along with the rest. And so that how we'll try to get the answers to your exact questions.
Great.
And this is the first of a get together with PSC. There will be others. So this isn't our only opportunity to submit questions to PSC.
And I also successfully copied it. And so I have all the questions from the chat. So I have them in real time and I can start looking for answers for you all. This is helpful for me. As I've said, I'm rather new to the organization. So these kinds of questions help me build some institutional knowledge. So I appreciate it very much.
Great. Michael, you have another question?
Yes. So, Heather, while I have the opportunity, I'd love to ask you about the question that I put in the chat. And that has to do with, as some people know, to meet the peak demand for electricity, Puget is looking at building some natural gas-fired plants that would generate electricity. And the climate scientists have told us we have to rapidly phase out our use of natural gas. But the good news is there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of climate-friendly alternatives to help meet that peak demand. And I know that Puget has started to fund some of those. So basically my question to you is, would Puget consider funding one or more climate-friendly alternatives for meeting peak demand? I'm not suggesting those alternatives would totally cover the bill on meeting the peak demand, but the more of them that we get out there and test and work with, then I think we're farther down the road of meeting peak demand in a climate-friendly way. You know, just one example of that kind of a thing would be, you know, a utility-scale battery system like Puget has funded in other places. So I know I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but if you have any thoughts, Heather, as to whether you think Puget would consider funding such a thing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't have an answer for you right away, but I can tell you that we're definitely working on several innovative and renewable energy strategies that we incorporate into our portfolio, and distributed energy and all of these things that we're looking at for demand we definitely, including, you know, separately the energy efficiency, the demand side energy efficiency that I work on. And so that education piece. But when it comes to renewable energy, we have several programs, and we are installing, I believe there's more than 250 individual solar installations on Vashon Island. They're not all PSE, you know, in the sense that I mean, well, they're all being utilized in that way, right? But there's 250, I believe, if I remember correctly from discussing this with Artisan Electric. But that's an incredible amount of solar power that's being generated on such a small piece of land in Washington State. So that's something I think you should all be proud of and something to consider. But renewable energy is a huge part of the future of Puget Sound Energy. And I'm not sure if you followed some of the purchase power agreements that we have with renewable energy, but I'm happy to share these agreements with you in terms of especially the most recent ones that have come out with different utilities on the West Coast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Heather, one of the questions that was submitted to me in advance of the meeting was about whether or not island residents can purchase renewable energy, solely renewable energy. Could you talk a little bit more about the programs that PSE offers for those?
So yeah, absolutely. So like I said, there's green power and there's solar choice. I think solar choice is probably something that would be, you know, easily applied. But as far as solar energy, I need to go back and I don't think that it would be like entirely that way. But you can, you know, bank your solar energy, and a lot of people do the net metering. So sometimes, you know, for the customers that are doing solar, you know, they end up not owing money on their bill. They end up paying into it through this banking system that they get for the energy that they don't use. It's kind of like if you think about rollover minutes, which probably don't even exist anymore, but I'm sure some of us know those rollover minutes from different cellular companies. Essentially, whatever you don't use gets banked, and you can count that towards your next month's usage. And so that's kind of how the net metering works. I want to say that there are folks that are 100% on the renewable, but I need to double check on that. So let me do that, and I will get back to you and have an answer.
Can I ask a question that's related to that?
Sure.
There are some states in the nation that allow a customer to put on enough solar so that their input from the line is actually negative, and they would get a check at the end of the year for the energy that they fed into the line that is solar generated, allowing other people to buy it. Have you guys considered changing your policies to allow that to happen in Washington State? Or even just specifically on Vashon Island?
Well, as your outreach manager, I will certainly lobby for whatever I can. However, as far as the RECs are concerned, that isn't something that we provide, but there are different credits at the state and federal level that would result in those checks that you're talking about.
They're just tax incentives for the construction of a project, but this would be something that would happen later on, even after the construction incentives, tax incentives have happened already, where if I produce more energy than what I used, that you are actually going to be selling to other people and making money off of it anyways, that I would get an incentive to produce solar on my property.
My understanding is the life of the project, and I will double check on this, but the lifespan of the installation, the RECs are signed off on through the utility. So it's not something that customers sell back, but I might be conflating that with our solar grant that we just closed out the application process for. So let me double check on that for you, and I will get an answer.
Great.
Michael Lurie again.
Heather, can you say a little bit about the green energy program that everyone can sign on to through their electricity bill?
Yeah, so you can, let me check on the Green Power program, and I don't have the URL right in front of me, but essentially you can go online and just sign up for Solar Choice or Green Power. And right now, if you sign up, you will get, a portion of that will go towards the funds for it will go towards the Vashon-Maury Land Trust. And then, it will reduce your bills over time, even if you don't personally have an installation on your property. So it also allows for folks that don't own property who are renting to participate in renewable energy that we produce. So those are the broad strokes, but I will get more details for you. Apologies. I'm still learning the programs. So that's kind of my high level knowledge on the program right now. But if there's something more specific that you're looking for with regard to what Vashon residents can do with it, please let me know, and I'm happy to get that answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Heather, I had asked a question about what Puget Sound Energy is doing in order to prevent its power lines from creating forest fires. I know that what's it called? Pacific Gas and Electric in California is currently bankrupt because they caused billions of dollars of damage last summer during the fire season with their power lines. So what does Puget Sound Energy do better?
Well, part of it is just geography and where our service area is located, but the majority of the vegetation within PSE's service area are firs and maples, and tree and alders, which are less likely to burn in a fire. We don't actually proactively de-energize power lines in advance of anything, but because there's an understanding that that de-energizing can have problems and safety risks of their own. In addition, we do work with tree wire and make a very concerted effort and do a lot of work around vegetation control, and that works for reliability and also reducing outages, and reduces the chance of a spark created by a tree limb. So a lot of what we do is proactively working with vegetation around power lines.
Thank you. Has there been any history of Puget Sound Energy power lines causing major forest fires?
Not to my knowledge, but again, I will double check on that. I think, yeah, not to my knowledge.
Well, that's a good history. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you so much for your presentation, Heather, and we look forward to your follow-up as well.
I look forward to doing the research and getting it done for you. Thank you all so much for the interesting questions and the time that you've given me to share our programs and services this evening. I hope you all have a safe and wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Okay, do we have any community announcements? Is anyone, okay, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up that in case there anybody that wanted to have questions that felt like we had to move along, especially with a lot of the procedures that we had to deal with about places they had thought of. I'm really happy to go in and address any of those. I'm David at VIFS for VashonFirstGuys.org, VIFS.org. A lot of places I considered. One of them, Dilworth, is a broadcast tower, something you may be familiar with. It's a lovely location because it's completely bare, so there's no tree noise. It's relatively high in altitude, but the problem is it's so far south. It's at least not there. They lose at least 900 feet of elevation, higher in elevation, and it's also a lot further away. It's actually in that case too far east. So I really did scout lots of locations, but I'm very happy to go and answer any questions. If anybody has any about places they thought of that maybe I didn't think of. And if you're interested in being on our mailing list as well for future Vashon Affairs Guides meetings, send me an email.
Okay. Any other? Yes.
I was wondering if David Goebel could put your email in the chat, please.
Oh yeah.
Thanks. Okay. David?
Yes. Okay.
We're waiting for announcements. We're looking for more announcements. Yes.
Okay. Are there other community announcements to be made? All right. And we have a few topics which would be good topics for future discussion. One of them is about shellfish overharvesting. And so I would like to invite, excuse me, Catherine to speak to that briefly. And it's a subject that we may want to have an entire meeting on, or at least a good portion of a meeting on. Thank you, Catherine.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So my name's Catherine, and first I just wanted to thank Diane and David and everybody else on the Vashon Community Council for your leadership in this community about important topics that impact us all and our climate. It's great to see so many people here who are passionate about the environment. So the topic actually I met with, and I also want to acknowledge Maria Mettler and Patty Vandenbroek, whom I had a meeting with last week, for their time and help on this. And I actually want to broaden the topic a little bit more than just, over harvesting. I would put it under a general umbrella of marine life and shoreline preservation and habitats. And we'd love to add the topic to a future meeting. So there's 4 issues kind of that we identified. The first issue, as you said, David, is over harvesting that we believe is going on, potentially commercial use too, but we can get into that at another time. The second area is really those who are harvesting, that they are not following the regulations, and that's impacting the marine life as well. They're not often filling in the holes. The third area is driftwood at the beach. And the driftwood at the beach has kind of
Catherine,
2 issues. Yeah? Oh, I'm breaking up. Well, I'm using a landline, so it's probably my, I'll back up to the second issue, which was not following the regulations and not filling the holes. And the third issue is driftwood at the beach, and that poses 2 issues. One is fire risk, and of course the other is if people are using the driftwood at the beach to make fires, it actually further contributes to erosion. And then the fourth area is just commercial vessels that are around the island, particularly out by Tacoma and the southern tip of Maury, and the pollution there. So those are 4 issues that we've identified thus far. There might be some other issues as well. And what I've done is I've set up an email for anybody who's interested in this. I'd love to have other people involved. So the email is Vashon-Maury, excuse me, I can't believe I forgot what it is. It's Vashon-Maury Marine Life at gmail.com. I'll put it into the chat. And just would love to have anybody who is interested in this topic to, there's my cat saying hello, to get involved and reach out to me. We'd love to have more people who would like to get involved and talk about the issue. And I want to see if Maria would like to speak, or Patty would like to speak. I know Maria from Vashon Nature Center was interested in speaking about a few things, and Patty perhaps as well. And I'll put the email in the chat. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Maria? Great.
Hi, yes, can you all hear me okay? I just wanted to give a quick follow-up to Catherine's announcement and let you know that as part of my work with the Vashon Nature Center, I'm part of the Citizen Stewardship Committee for the Maury Island Aquatic Reserve. It's one of 8 of the Department of Natural Resources aquatic reserves around the state. So if anyone's interested in participating in that avenue as well, it's another option, and as well as Catherine's email that she'll be sharing. So I'll put that into the chat as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting this onto the agenda tonight. And thank you all of us. I mean, for everyone, this is my first time at a community council meeting. It's been fun.
Great. Welcome. And was there another presenter, Catherine, who you wanted to introduce?
Patty, would you like to speak? Patty may not still be on.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. And it sounds as if we could get a few different government entities involved in what you're talking about so that we could make it a fairly broad topic at another date. And so let's keep the discussion going. Another issue that had been raised, but I don't think it's going to be really addressed now, was traffic calming. Who is going to speak to that? Adam?
Hi, that was me.
Oh, okay.
So I'm actually waiting on a King County traffic engineer to get back to me about kind of just looking at options for maybe some traffic calming things that we could do on the island. But I was going to wait until I had talked to the county traffic engineers before really bringing it up at a meeting.
Okay, now, Adam, in the past, the community council has had a traffic safety committee.
I heard.
Is that something that you would be interested in becoming involved in? And
yes,
perhaps
exactly.
even, great. Well, then I would like to encourage anyone who's interested in participating in a committee on traffic safety on the island to communicate with Adam, and so we can start a committee of that nature. It's been a tradition for many, many years, and it's well respected by the public safety entities that we deal with. So we've accomplished a lot of things with it in the past, and we should do it now into the future. So Adam, if you would like to try to reach out,
yeah,
and get people.
I'll put my email address here in the chat so people can get in touch with me if they want to.
Great, great. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our next meeting is going to be October 19th at 7 p.m. via WebEx. And at that time, we will probably have all of our nominations or all the people who are running for community council available. And I would encourage people who are on this call to run for the board. It's a good opportunity to get more involved, to meet interesting people, and to help your island. So anyone who would like to participate in the board, you should know that you will not be representing other people to communicate what they want to do. It's a way to reach out to the island, to figure out what issues are important, and to basically communicate with other islanders. So you're not really being elected as a representative. What you are is you're reaching out to, you're someone who can communicate with other people who are not ordinarily represented, and to encourage them and to find out what's important to them and bring it to the community council. So we need more people, and I encourage everyone who would like to submit a nomination for themselves for the board. So thank you all, and at this point, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much for coming.
Goodbye, everybody. It was